The other day, I was tasting through my wines with a sommelier, and he mentioned the silkiness in all my wines and asked, "What are you doing different than all the other wineries I've been to?" I couldn't go into all of it at the time, but I did touch upon them being low intervention wines. So, fast forward, I thought I'd start sharing what makes my wines different. More and more, the topic of low intervention wines is popping up. There is really no clear definition of low intervention wine, but most would agree that it means wines with no obscure ingredients. Now, as one who likes going to wine bars and trying out these wines, or sometimes even a full flight, I've never really been impressed with these. It seems low intervention has to mean compromised quality. That's not to say all low intervention wines, we'll just call them LIs from now on. Oh, that's kind of telling, but yeah, we're not saying all are bad. It's just that very few are merely average. I guess most wineries are interpreting LIs as wines where little or no sulfites are used, maybe no grape tannins used in place of them, no pH correction using tartaric acid derived from grapes, and maybe even only allowing the current dominant strain of yeast in the air or in the vineyard to act upon the grapes to ferment them. As a winemaker myself, this sounds like a horrible idea, born out of complete ignorance of what is happening on a microbiological level. I believe the thrust of the issue with creating LIs is to allow the full expression of terroir and the expression of each vintage to show through. In the world of mass-produced wines, it is often seen as a risk to allow the same wine to be different each year, so they go through great lengths to analyze each lot and fill in the gaps to create consistency. This way, the consumer knows exactly what they are buying when they pick that wine up off the shelf, but in a way, they don't. Now enter the world of boutique winemaking, whereby these practices are not only cost prohibitive in both the analysis, but also in the trials and additions required without the scale of the large winery. At this small scale, we can easily make the business decision to go LI and allow each vintage to be different. When the goal is to consistently make something great versus to be great at making something consistent, a lot of excitement for varietal and vintage variation enters the picture. In our practice, Artisan Uprising, LI wines are a negotiation we make with nature. I may decide to use a yeast that is specifically cultured for a variety of characteristics that are appealing to me, given the chemistry of the grapes at harvest. In doing this approach, what I am actually choosing is to outcompete the feral and native yeasts around us. So this strain ferments all the way through, helping to prevent a stuck fermentation, perhaps accentuating a certain characteristic in that grape, helping the volume of alcohol produced to either be higher or lower, and most importantly, preventing spoilage organisms that can ruin a wine to take hold. However, the time you give the grapes to cold soak can also play a huge part in how much intervention you will have with the wine. Since we typically inoculate right after crushing and destemming, adding sulfites are counterproductive to kicking off fermentation, and thus we have intervened less. Whether or not we add yeast is pretty inconsequential, since some sort of yeast will have to ferment the grapes. But at this point, we are starting with less total SO2 in the finished wine from the very beginning. In short, as of now, in creating a LI wine, we have added less SO2. We are mitigating the risk of bacteria and other organisms from tainting the wine, since a native fermentation can take days to get going, and we are not using hundreds of pounds of dry ice to cold soak and possibly over-extract, nor are we using enzymes to do the work coming in days ahead. Of course, I am speaking about the practices of our boutique wine production, as I don't believe they can be reproduced on a large scale. This is just the beginning of how I make low-intervention wines and consistently create wines I want to drink. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, share, whatever, as I uncover a ton of other topics from the winery and continue to answer that sommelier's question, what do you do differently in the winery?